Okay, I need you to stop scrolling for the next 15 minutes, because what just happened inside a quiet traditional Korean estate might be the most honest 3 minutes BTS has given us all year. No backing track, no studio polish, just 7 microphones, 1 courtyard, and a voice that made an entire fandom go completely silent before it went completely insane. I'm talking about Jimin, the normal live clip, and the moment his real, unedited voice hit the internet. Stick around, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why this 3-minute clip is being called one of the most important vocal moments of BTS's entire ARIRANG era. And if you're new here, hit subscribe now, because we cover every single BTS comeback moment like this one, in depth, the day it happens. Let's set the stage first, because context is everything with this one. 4 months ago, BTS dropped their 5th studio album, ARIRANG. And if you thought the promotion cycle would slow down after the initial wave, you thought wrong. This group has been doing the opposite of what every other act does after a release. Instead of fading out, they've been escalating. 5 separate music videos and performance films tied to this one album. Swim, 2.0, Hooligan, Merry-Go-Round, and now Normal. That's not a normal rollout, pun completely intended. That's a machine that refuses to stop. And it's exactly why this fandom never gets a moment to breathe. Now, before we get to the live clip, you need to understand what Normal already did as a regular music video, because the numbers are honestly a little ridiculous. The song dropped first as a Spotify exclusive, and within a single day it became the most streamed K-pop music video ever released on that platform. One day, that's the kind of record that usually takes weeks to build toward, and BTS broke it before the sun came up. The video itself, directed by Tanu Muino, followed the 7 members through the haze of a wild night and into the quiet, almost fragile morning after. It's moody, it's cinematic, and it's got that now iconic shot of all 7 of them lined up in front of a row of bathroom mirrors that immediately became a meme format across every platform you can think of. But here's the part that actually matters for this video. In the middle of all that chaos, there's a scene where Jimin is alone in an ornate room, reclining across a bed, shirt open, wearing a pearl necklace like it's the most natural thing in the world. And ARMY did not just notice it, the internet noticed it. Within hours, Jimin was the only member of BTS trending on X worldwide, landing as high as number 16 globally, not just in one country, but simultaneously across North America, South America, and Asia. Think about how rare that actually is. 7 members in the same video, and somehow one scene, a handful of seconds, pulls the entire spotlight in one direction. That's not an accident. That's the kind of screen presence you can't manufacture. And it didn't stop at social media trends. When the special package tracks came out, the Jimin version, the one with his individual cover art, actually topped the iTunes charts in 7 different countries, including France and Japan. Not the group version, his version. So by the time the official Normal music video finished its press cycle, Jimin had already proven something that a lot of casual listeners underestimate about him, that his individual pull inside this group is enormous. But visuals and virality are one thing. Vocals are a completely different test. And that test is exactly what the live clip was built for. On July 21st, at midnight, Big Hit Music quietly dropped something very different from the glossy, cinematic chaos of the original video. No mansion, no party, no dramatic lighting rig. Instead, they filmed inside Seonhyun, a traditional Korean Hanak estate, the same location they used for the Swim live clip earlier in the album cycle. If you don't know what a Hanak is, picture centuries-old Korean architecture, curved wooden roofs, open courtyards, a kind of stillness that modern buildings just don't have. And that stillness is the entire point. Because when you strip away the production, the auto-tune, the layered harmonies, the mixing tricks that every modern pop song relies on, what you're left with is just the human voice. Raw, unedited, completely exposed. And that's exactly what this live clip is. A stripped-back, essentially acoustic performance where the members are singing live, in real time, with nothing to hide behind. You can hear the wind moving through the courtyard. You can hear the members breathing between phrases. That tiny inhale right before a high note, the kind of detail that gets buried under studio production 9 times out of 10, is sitting right there in the mix, completely audible. That's not a small creative choice. That's a group essentially saying, we are confident enough in what we sound like without editing that we're going to hand you the unfiltered version and let you judge for yourself. Here's why that matters so much, especially for international audiences who might not follow K-pop closely. There's a persistent perception in a lot of Western music criticism that idol groups lean heavily on production to sound as polished as they do on record, that the live experience is a watered-down version of the studio product. It's a stereotype that shows up constantly in comment sections, in reaction videos, in casual conversations about the genre as a whole. And whether or not you think that stereotype is fair, it exists, and it shapes how new listeners approach groups like BTS before they've ever actually heard them sing without a safety net. A clip like this is the direct answer to that assumption. Not through a statement, not through an interview, but through 3 uninterrupted minutes of proof. And Jimin's part in that proof is exactly why this clip blew up the way it did. His voice has always had this particular texture, breathy in the low register, but with this surprising, controlled power when he pushes into the higher notes. It's a hard voice to fake and an even harder voice to hide flaws in, because that breathiness means every crack, every wobble, every imperfection would be instantly obvious. There's nowhere to hide in a performance style like that. And in this live clip, in that quiet henna courtyard, he doesn't need to hide anything. The control is there. The tone is there. The emotional weight that made the original Normal scene go viral in the first place is there too. Except now it's coming through his actual vocal cords instead of a camera angle. This is also happening at a moment where BTS, as a group, has been proving their live capability on the biggest stages imaginable. Just 2 days before this live clip dropped, on July 19th, the group performed at the halftime show of the FIFA World Cup final, sharing that stage with Madonna, Shakira, and Justin Bieber, in front of one of the largest live television audiences on the planet. They opened with an electric rendition of Dynamite that turned a global sports broadcast into a full-scale dance floor for a few minutes, crossing language barriers in a way that only a handful of live performances ever managed to do. That's not a group that needs to hide behind studio tricks. That's a group stepping onto the biggest stage in the world, and then, 48 hours later, sitting down in a quiet traditional courtyard to prove the same thing on a completely different scale, intimate instead of massive, but just as convincing. And the world tour numbers back this up even further. The ARIRANG World Tour is currently spanning 34 cities and 88 shows, an almost unprecedented scale for a single touring cycle by a Korean act. Around 840,000 people came out across the North American leg alone, and roughly 720,000 more across the European dates. During the performance of Body to Body on this tour, there's this moment where the entire stadium ends up singing the traditional Korean folk song ARIRANG together. Thousands of voices in different countries, in different languages, somehow landing on the same melody at the same time. That's the emotional through line connecting all of this. A group whose entire album is built around Korean identity and heritage, choosing again and again to prove that identity through unfiltered, undeniably live moments, whether that's a stadium full of strangers singing a folk song, or one member's voice cutting through a quiet courtyard. So when you put it all together, what you're actually looking at with this live clip isn't just another piece of comeback content. It's a statement. 4 months after their album dropped, at a point where most groups would be winding promotion down, BTS chose to release something that strips away every layer of production and dares you to listen closely. And Jimin, who already had the entire internet's attention from one scene in the original video, used this stripped-back format to back up the hype with something a viral clip alone can never fully prove, that the voice behind the visuals is exactly as strong as the reaction suggested it would be. If you watched the clip already, you know the exact moment I'm talking about, that breath right before the note lands. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm genuinely telling you to pause this video right now, go watch it, and come back, because reading about it and hearing it are 2 completely different experiences. This is one of those rare live performances where the silence in the room does almost as much work as the singing itself. Let's slow down for a second and actually talk about what makes Jimin's voice so specifically hard to fake, because I don't think enough people break this down properly. A lot of vocalists get praise for power, for hitting big notes and holding them. That's impressive, but it's also, in a strange way, easier to cover up in a mix. What Jimin does is different. His voice sits in this breathy, almost fragile register a lot of the time, and then without warning it opens up into something with real weight and control behind it. That contrast, going from soft to powerful and back again within a single phrase, is one of the hardest things to fake in a live setting. If the breath control isn't real, if the transition between registers isn't genuinely trained, it falls apart instantly the second you remove studio layering. There's no algorithm smoothing that transition out for you. It's either there or it isn't. And in this Hanna courtyard, with nothing but a live microphone and the natural acoustics of an open space, it was there. This is also why the choice of Seonhyun as a location was so smart, and honestly a little bit ruthless from a production standpoint. A Hanna isn't a soundstage. It's not built for acoustics the way a studio or even a concert hall is. There's open air, wind, natural echo bouncing off wood and stone instead of engineered walls. If you wanted to hide a weak vocal, this is the single worst environment you could possibly choose. Every imperfection would be amplified by the space, not softened by it. So the fact that Big Hit chose this exact location for the second time in this same album cycle after already using it for the Swim Live clip tells you everything about how confident they are in what these members can actually do without a net underneath them. Let's also talk about the emotional tone of Normal itself for a second, because it matters for why this stripped-back version hits differently than the original video did. The song is about the gap between how life looks from the outside and how it actually feels from the inside, the idea that what seems like freedom or celebration can carry a completely different weight once you're the one living it. In the original music video, that theme got told through visuals, through the wild night and the quiet morning after, through Jimin's ornate bedroom scene that everyone latched onto. But in the live clip, that same emotional idea gets told purely through vocal delivery. There's nowhere for a lyric like that to hide when it's just a voice and a courtyard. You either feel the weight in the performance or you don't, and clearly, based on how fast this clip spread, people felt it. I also want to bring up something a lot of viewers outside the K-pop space genuinely don't realize, which is how much scrutiny live vocals get inside this industry specifically. Because of how heavily choreography-driven a lot of these performances are, full group formations, synchronized movement, sometimes incredibly demanding stage transitions, there's a long-running conversation about how much of what you hear during a live show is actually live in real time versus supported by a backing track. That conversation isn't unique to BTS. It follows basically every major idol group, and it's part of why content like this live clip carries so much weight when it drops. There's no choreography here. There's no massive stage production to hide behind. It's just 7 people standing in a courtyard, singing, which strips the entire debate down to its simplest possible form. You either hear real voices holding real notes, or you don't. And what everyone heard was real. Now, let's actually put the numbers side by side, because context makes this even more impressive. The original Normal video became the most streamed K-pop music video ever released on Spotify within a single day. Jimin's specific scene from that video pushed him to trend globally at number 16 on X, ahead of every other member, spanning 3 separate continents at once. His individual version of the Korean release topped iTunes charts in 7 different countries. That's the kind of viral momentum most artists spend years trying to build. And instead of resting on that momentum, the group turned around days later and released a version of the exact same song with 0 visual spectacle, 0 party imagery, 0 shock value scenes, just pure vocal performance in a quiet traditional courtyard. That's a bold move. A lot of acts would be tempted to keep riding the flashy version as long as possible. BTS did the opposite, and it paid off, because the live clip has been picking up its own wave of praise specifically for how serene and technically impressive it is, completely separate from whatever virality the original video generated. There's also something worth mentioning about how this fits into the bigger picture of where BTS is right now as artists, 4 years plus into their careers as a group, well past the point where they'd need to prove anything to anyone. And yet here they are, choosing to release content that puts their raw technical ability on full display instead of leaning entirely on spectacle. That's not something groups typically do once they've already secured global success. It would be easy to stick with what already works, big budget videos, viral scenes, flashy choreography. Choosing instead to release a quiet, vocal-forward performance film in a traditional Hanna says something about where this group's priorities are at this stage of their career. They're not just chasing virality anymore. They're building a body of work that can stand on pure artistic merit. And this live clip, is a pretty clear piece of evidence for that. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this rollout is clearly not finished. 5 pieces of content in 4 months tells you this team has more planned, and if the pattern holds, we should expect either another live clip, another performance film, or something tied directly to the next stretch of world tour dates. Whatever it is, based on everything we've seen from this era so far, it's not going to be quiet about it, even when the content itself is as quiet as a courtyard in the middle of the night. Before you go, I want to know something from you specifically. Which moment hit harder for you? The viral bedroom scene from the original music video, or the stripped-back version in the hammock? Drop your answer in the comments, because I read every single one of them, and I want to know if the visual side or the vocal side is what actually won you over. If this video helped you understand why this clip matters, do me a favor and hit that like button before you leave. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are just discovering this side of BTS's artistry. And if you want to be here for the next comeback moment, the next live clip, the next viral scene, the subscribe button is right there, and I promise you we will be covering it in exactly this kind of depth the moment it happens. One more thing before you click away. If you're someone who came into this video skeptical, someone who's heard the whole live vocal debate around idol groups, and wanted to see the actual evidence for yourself instead of just taking anyone's word for it, I want to hear from you too. Comment down below whether this changed how you think about vocal ability inside these massive, choreography-heavy groups. Because that conversation matters, and it's exactly the kind of conversation this channel exists to have, backed by facts, backed by the actual footage, not just hype. We're going to keep tracking every single move of this ARIRANG era, from the world tour stops to the next surprise release, so make sure notifications are turned on if you don't want to miss it. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. That actually means a lot, and it tells this platform to show this video to more people who need to see it. I'll see you in the next one.